Rain fell heavily that night, and every drop seemed to remind me of the burden I carried every day. I wondered why I was in the pub, as the lights reflected on the puddles, but right then, all I wanted was to escape the routine that suffocated me, even for a few hours. I entered, surrounded by the smell of beer and the happy laughter, found a seat at the counter, ordered a drink, and let my mind wander before seeing him across the room in the middle of the night's darkness. My heart raced when he asked, "Are you planning to stay there alone all night?" with a teasing smile. "Maybe," I replied, "or maybe I'm just waiting for someone interesting to show up." He laughed a contagious sound. "I think that someone might be me." Lucas had a special quality about him that made me feel alive again. Conversation with him was easy, and every word helped me forget the routine with Andre and the pressure at home. Lucas seemed to view life as a grand adventure, and I was prepared to start it in that bar. "Do you come here often?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation going sometimes, but tonight I came for a special reason. He looked into my eyes and said, "It seems that reason is you." A wave of emotion passed over me as if all my worries had disappeared, and it felt easier than I'd anticipated to let go of thoughts about my marriage. "So, what do you think we could do together?" I challenged him to surprise me by getting up and offering his hand. "How?" When I took his hand and let him lead me to the music, it felt like we were alone. He led me with confidence, and the intimacy made my heart race. I laughed and let go as though there was no tomorrow, but then a sense of guilt crept in. I thought about Andre and the life I had left behind. "You seem far away," Lucas said, interrupting my thoughts. "Are you okay?" "It's just that I don't usually do this," I confessed, feeling a little embarrassed. "Everything feels so new sometimes." He smiled. His words reverberated, and for a brief moment, I chose freedom. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and I made the decision to take the chance, knowing that the next day would bring consequences. Days had gone by since that rainy night when I first met Lucas, but the memory of his smile remained vivid, and even though it was only friendship, there was more when I compared my life with Andre. Routine had made everything into a predictable cycle, and the passion seemed to have faded. Lucas was a breath of fresh air. Our secret meetings were filled with laughter and glances that said more than 1,000 words. He asked in a message, should we go back to that bar, and I didn't hesitate to accept that place had become our haven where conversations took place. Slowly, like a candle without a flame, I recalled nights when we were exhausted from work and we would sit on the couch watching TV and talking about insignificant things. "Helena, are you okay?" he would ask, and I wowl. As we strolled through the park on a sunny afternoon, Lucas asked, "Helena, are you deep in thoughts?" I felt alive again, and for a moment it was like I was reliving my youth when everything was lighter and more fun. However, as our relationship deepened, I felt a weight on my heart, a constant struggle between being the wife Andre knew and the woman Lucas awakened in me. I wondered, what am I doing? Lucas seemed so carefree that he deserved someone who could give herself fully. Smiling, I said, "I'm thinking about how unpredictable life is." That night while we exchanged messages, my phone buzzed with a message from Andre. "Helena, are you home? We need to talk." My heart raced as I read it, but he knew what I would say. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm, and replied, "Of course, love. I'm here inside." However, the tension between messages from Lucas and Andre became almost tangible, and I could picture Andre asking why I hadn't told him I was with Lucas, and the idea of confronting them. I was torn between two worlds that felt irreconcilable. "I can't keep going like this," I whispered to myself as insomnia took hold. The freedom I felt with Lucas was intoxicating, but the guilt of deceiving Andre was crushing. What did I really want? The answer eluded me. The truth felt unbearable, even though I knew I couldn't keep up this lie. That night, sleep didn't come. Images of Lucas and Andre blended in my mind. Lucas's laugh was light as a melody, and Andre's voice echoed with worry and love. Andre was beginning to suspect details like my late arrivals, the smiles when I mentioned work, and the silences between us seemed to arouse his suspicions. The weight of the truth left me cornered, as if the walls around me were closing in. I needed to see Lucas, I thought, and soon I was at a bar waiting for him with a racing heart and full of anxieties. I closed my eyes for what my heart desired, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. He said, "Hello, Helena. I was thinking of you." His smile, lit by the surroundings, made all of my worries vanish, if only for a moment. He sat next to me, and the way he looked at me made me feel alive, but there was a shadow over this happiness. "Lucas, we need to talk," I whispered, my voice shaking. He sensed the seriousness, and his expression changed. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Are you okay?" He looked at me in silence, reflecting Helena. "We have something special. I don't want this." I didn't know if I still loved Andre, but his question cut deep. I wasn't sure if I still loved him, but the pain I could cause was very real. "I don't know what I feel anymore. Everything is so confusing," I said, feeling tears well up when I'm with you. To end because of other people, I knew Andre had always been by my side, and the idea of hurting him brought a crushing guilt. "Lucas, you don't understand. Andre loves me, and I don't want to be the cause of his pain," I whispered. Lucas stepped closer and said, "You don't have to feel that way. We can find a way out. There's no need to rush anything." But I recognized that the situation was beyond our control and that the uncertainty was getting to be too much. I asked for time to think, and he nodded, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. I felt lost and alone, my decisions trapped in an emotional maze that night, and as I made my way home, the rain was still falling, and I knew that nothing would be the same again when Andre arrived. He entered with a closed expression, and I could tell something was off. His once loving eyes were now far away. "Helena, we need to talk," he said in a firm voice. I nodded, but the words seemed to be stuck in my throat. Andre then came over and threw a piece of paper on the table, which was a picture of Lucas and me laughing together. "You weren't going to tell me," he said with obvious pain. But the tears were already streaming down my face, and I couldn't say anything to make up for what I had done. His voice was filled with pain. "It was a mistake. I just wanted to feel alive again," I answered, "and you thought that hurting me was the right response." He responded in a tone that was a mixture of pain and despair. "I love you, Helena, and I always have. But somewhere along the line, I lost myself, and I felt helpless. How had I allowed things to come to this point?" He asked the pain. Lucas made me feel alive again, as if there was more out there. "And now what do you expect for me to just accept it?" I asked him not to yell. "I'm here trying to explain. I'm so sorry, Andre." "Then why did you do it? Do you think our marriage and our life together means nothing?" He asked, exhausted. "I don't know. I just needed to escape, even if it was only for a moment. I knew something was wrong, but I never imagined you would betray me," feeling the weight of guilt. Andre turned away as if he wanted to get away from me, but he stopped abruptly. "How could you do this to me, Helena? How could you destroy what we had?" he asked. I had no response, and as the words faded away, all that was left was an echo. His voice was filled with frustration. I knew he was right. There was no way to forget as the world around me seemed to fall apart, and I realized I was losing the only person who truly cared about me. In the midst of despair, I realized that my life and the dreams I had cultivated were shattered, and I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window, trying to comprehend what had happened in our happy memories that had been tainted by betrayal. When he finally left, the silence that followed was heavy and suffocating, and I sat on the couch in tears, reflecting on the destruction of my marriage and the illusions I had built. The truth was bitter. The rain and the sound of the water hitting the glass only made me feel more confused and alone. I had to face the reasons that had led me to live two lives, and I had to think about what I really wanted for the future. Memories of our first meeting, when Andre looked at me and smiled as if I were the only woman in the world, came flooding back to me. "Helena, you're the reason for my smile," he used to say, and I wondered how I had let everything slip away. Exchanged everything for a moment with Lucas. I wasn't sure if I was feeling guilty or regretful because the pain of betrayal consumed me, but the memories of our little things together and our laughter tightened my throat. I wondered if you still loved me, Andre, but the answer didn't seem to matter anymore. Then the doorbell rang, making my heart race, And when I opened it, I saw Lucas, whose smile always left me perplexed. He looked different and more serious, which made me pause. "Hello, Helena. May I come in?" he asked quietly, and I nodded in an attempt to. "I missed you," Lucas said, looking into my eyes. I remembered everything we'd shared, including laughter, in-depth conversations, and the feeling of being alive again. However, I realized that this wasn't a solution to my problems. I confessed that I missed you too, but I knew I couldn't continue with this situation. I needed space. He entered the room and changed the atmosphere, bringing with him a mixture of comfort and confusion. I thought we were creating something special, but I also have a marriage, so I confessed, struggling with the words, "Andre deserves the truth, and so do I. I can't keep dividing myself between you and him." He looked at me, surprised about what about us, and I whispered, but the intensity of the moment made me feel stronger. "I can't hide behind a friendship anymore. This is an escape, and I don't want that." He frowned as if he didn't understand. Choice, but my heart still yearned for what Lucas stood for. He drew nearer, and for a brief moment, I thought he would try to talk me out of staying, but he sighed as though he understood. "I don't want to be the reason for your pain, Helena," he said, his eyes sad. "I think you need time to find yourself." "I really did need time. I need to step away from you, Lucas. I need to discover who I am without you or Andre in my life," he said, nodding, and the silence between us grew heavy. "If that's what you need, I respect it," he said. Part of me said goodbye to Lucas as he left, but another part of me was prepared to face what lay ahead. I was alone once more, but I was determined to discover the truth within myself. The road wouldn't be simple, but maybe at last I could start rebuilding my life in an authentic way. When I woke up the following morning, Lucas said goodbye with a final look that seemed to express everything we hadn't managed to say in words. On a cloudy day, a faint light came in through the window, as if the sky understood my sadness. I looked at the ceiling, trying to find the strength to face another day, and I wondered what I really wanted and who I really was. I couldn't find the answers to these questions, so I decided to go for a walk in the nearby park, where the smell of wet earth and the gentle breeze gave me a brief sense of lightness. As I walked, I reflected on all that had happened, the happy times with Lucas Andre's suffering, and the things that had happened. He sent me a message saying, "Helena, can we meet? We need to talk." My heart raced, but I knew it was time to face this situation, so I said simply, yes, since there was no more running away. I also remembered my last conversation with Andre, in which he was so hurt, and I couldn't blame him. His pained expression haunted me. I needed to forgive myself, I murmured, as if the words could truly set me free. Andre was sitting at a table in the back with a sad and expectant expression. I sat across from him, and he said, "Hello, how are you?" in a low voice. "I'm trying, and you trying to understand what happened," he said, breaking the awkward silence. "I never imagined you were capable of this." The pain in his words struck me deeply, Andre. "I know I hurt you, and I know there are no excuses that can fix this. I was lost." He took a deep breath in an attempt to find peace. "Helena, what happened to us? We had everything, and now I don't even know who you are anymore." I let myself get carried away and started crying because I thought I was living something new, something that made me feel alive, but I didn't realize what I was destroying between us. Andre looked at me with understanding and pain in his eyes, and I knew that I loved you, and I held his hand for a moment. However, I had to face who I really am. As we stood to say goodbye, he looked into my eyes and said, "What I want is that you're not the same person I used to be. I just want you to be happy even if it means we won't be together." His words weighed heavily on my heart, and I hoped that one day we can look at each other without this pain. It felt like time stood still. As we talked about the good memories of what once brought us together, but the truth was painful and obvious. The love we shared had turned into a memory of what could have been. Eyes and said, "Take care, Helena, and remember to be honest with yourself as well as with others." I left the cafe feeling lighter, but also with a heavy heart because I needed that conversation to realize that, despite the pain, there was hope for rebuilding my life authentically. The path wouldn't be simple, but I was willing to try, and it was time to accept who I really am and forgive myself.